So, for my American history class, we were instructed to create a video reflection on the first unit of American Pageants. So, at the same time we had learned the first unit of American Pageants, my American authors teacher had assigned us two poems. One was I Hear America Singing by Walt Whitman, and the other one was called I Too Sing America by Langston Hughes. I think these two poems really allowed me to establish a greater understanding of Unit 1 because suddenly I was looking at two different point of views. So when we were discussing these poems, I was looking at Walt Whitman, who was a very patriotic poet, and he would write about how great America was and how everybody was very optimistic. I think Langston Hughes still tries to look at America in a very optimistic ways, but he sort of emphasizes that there are areas that could be improved. And he wants to show Whitman that the country, the perfect country that he had thought it was not as perfect as he envisioned it to be. And I think Langston Hughes sort of brings this up partially because he is of that misrepresented society, which allows him to look at a different point of view than what Whitman looks at. So, relating it back to our American history class, I would like to start out by talking about how I sort of learned American history before this class. I think in my previous classes, a lot of my teachers would not really emphasize the atrocities that had happened to misrepresented races in society. I think especially Christopher Columbus and the Native Americans, I think this year would be the first year that I actually learned about what he had done to these Native Americans when he had come to America. He had basically annihilated their tribes and sort of tried to settle down his ideals on these Native Americans. I think we sort of take this as an opportunity, or I think many teachers take this as an opportunity to teach students about how America has benefited from these atrocities. While I do think that is an important topic to focus on, I think it's still very important for us to look at these atrocities from an unbiased view. We usually look at them from an American point of view, and I think it's time for us to look at them from an unbiased point of view because then we really are able to understand both sides of the story. I do believe that Walt Whitman's poem sort of represents these teachers who tried to move away from these atrocities. They don't really focus on the bad parts of the American growth and establishment. Rather, they focused on the benefits and what was good that came out, the end results. I think, yes, that's important to talk about, but I think all the stuff that has happened in between has greatly contributed to how we live today in America. I think throughout many of the history classes that I took, an idea was brought up that history was taught so that history wouldn't repeat itself. But I think if we do not dig deep into these atrocities, or we do not look at different points of views, such as someone who's white versus someone who is colored, I don't think we can necessarily ensure that history will not repeat itself. I think as a generalization, it's very important for students to understand both sides of the story. I think these two poems that were introduced to me allowed me to look at history, American history, from a wider perspective. I think while I'm looking at two different poems written by two different people, I was able to generalize the entire thing, and I think that's very important when you learn about history because it's not always just our point of view, but also everybody else's point of view.